Adam Stoehr here, Vice President, Leadership Development at CEO Global Network. I thought I'd throw together this quick leadership lesson on what team size is best when you're trying to get something done at work. Our founder and CEO, John Wilson, sent around a note earlier this month with this exact question. It said, teams, leaders, CEOs, what do you think the best team size is to get things done at work? So it got me thinking, as a new member of CEO Global Network, I wonder what the research says. So this is the first CEO Global Network leadership lesson by Adam Stoehr. If you like it, let me know in the comments because I might do more of these. The intention here is to have a short form lesson about questions that we need to answer every single day in a leadership role in our organizations, and our CEOs can lead their organizations better as a result. So first off, have you ever done tug of war as an icebreaker at an event at work? This is a picture of me and my team. My brother there is the anchor on the far left, and I'm the next person there. And we won a tug of war championship. I'm going to use tug of war as a little bit of an analogy here. Like, how much better could our team be if we added one more member? That's an interesting question. We're not necessarily going to get 100% effort of that new member because there's not enough room for them to pull. So there is a sweet spot for the best team size when it comes to something like tug of war, and also when it comes to solving problems at work. So the theory typically revolves around two schools of thought when it comes to team size. The first is more the merrier. Let's get more people in here. The more people you have on the team, the better off your team will be. But then on the opposite side of that coin, we sometimes have too many cooks in the kitchen, as they say. So here I am trying to follow a recipe to cook something in my kitchen. If I have too many cooks in that kitchen, I'm going to get nothing done. More the merrier and too many cooks are opposable models. They will fight each other all day long. And that is the question of the day. What is the best team size? So I looked around at the research, and a lot of theorists suggest that 4 is the magic number. Here I am working with a team at the Department of National Defense in Winnipeg last year. We were doing some problem-solving skills. A lot of the research suggests what they do. Core units are made up of 4 people. Vince Walsh talked about this in a popular YouTube video that John shared last week. Elite military units in the world have a core of 4 people, not 5 people, 4 people on those teams. And he even went really bluntly with this. And he said, if we have a 5th person in the group, there is a greater chance that one of those people will be coming back in a body bag. Tough stuff, but when it comes to military teams, we have to be really careful with how big these teams are. On the flip side of this, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs. They typically have 6 players on the ice unless it's a penalty, 1 goalie, 3 forwards, 2 defense, playing their roles. This speaks to theory in the workplace where if, like with the Toronto Maple Leafs, the members bring very unique skills, then larger teams start to become attractive. So that's the conundrum. Should we follow kind of a military model where 4 is best? Or should we go a little bigger where we're bringing in more thoughts, more people, more diversity, more skills? Most leadership questions have the same answer. It depends. It depends on a lot of things. That's what I want to unpack in this short talk. What does it depend on? When are small teams good? When are big teams good? What kind of leadership is required to unlock the potential of any team of any size? So let's look at small teams first. The first thing that comes to mind is this idea of a quartet. 4 members. There's no such thing as a string quintet. Each of these instruments bring a unique sound to the table. If I added 1 more cello, if I added 1 more violin, it wouldn't bring a lot of value. 3 things I'm going to look at with small teams. The notion of communication, a little easier to communicate with a small team. The idea of being agile and being able to quickly make decisions and solve problems. And small teams have a really big advantage of building cohesion quickly. One of the problems with a team that's very cohesive is that it can lead to groupthink. So we'll talk about that as well. Now, larger teams. I've never worked in a hospital, but I have watched every single episode of Grey's Anatomy. And this is a picture from that television show. You can see that they're collaborating and performing surgery on a victim. Each of these individuals brings a very unique perspective. We have a surgeon in this room. We have a scrub nurse in this room. We have an anesthesiologist in this room. We have support workers in this room. We have multiple team members working on the same problem. That diversity of thought that they're bringing is very valuable. So larger teams succeed in that regard. It's the whole notion of we are smarter than me. On the downside of larger teams, there's this concept of social loafing that I want to explore a little bit. And there's a much greater chance for relationship conflict, which is something we don't want because that can chew away at productivity. Let's start with this idea of communication. Think about the last time you were at a dinner party. If there were 4 people at that table, you had a chance to speak with everyone. Communication is the essence of teams, and smaller teams are just better at it. As teams grow, the number of communication links that we have increases, and it can add to the clutter of information that we have to deal with. So it's complicating the coordination of tasks. You can't really opt out of a 4-person conversation. Think about the last time you were at a 4-person dinner conversation. You can't just be on your phone and turn away and not talk to the people in front of you. As this table conversation gets bigger, you can start to opt out of some of these conversations. So think about the last time you were at a speaker's event where you had 10 people at your table. You can talk to both people on either side of you. That's an easy thing to do. But you can start to opt out of other conversations because I'm too far from that person. I can even opt out of the conversations with people right next to me because they might be engaged in conversations with people that are too far from me. So I can engage with my phone. As the team grows, this becomes more difficult. So as you can see, smaller teams have better chances to communicate well. That doesn't mean that they will communicate well, but they have a better chance to, just by the nature of conversation. So let's talk about the biggest benefit of a big team. This is that we are smarter than me. When we have large teams, there is more of a chance for diversity, and diversity brings magic to teams. I had a different background than you. I grew up in a different city than you. I went to a different school than you. I have a different experience than you. All of that shapes the way I handle problems. Similarly, you grew up in a different city than me. You went to a different school than me. You have different experiences than me. And when we put our heads together, we can solve bigger, more complex problems. This is the argument that everyone will make when they say we got to have a 6, 7, 8-person team because we're trying to increase the diversity. We want the right mix of skills. We want the right mix of technical skills, interpersonal skills, decision-making skills, problem-solving skills. If we have a bigger mix of all of this, we will have a much better chance to solve problems at work. So why not always have a big team? Well, there's a couple of downsides. And the first one is this idea of social loafing. So if you haven't heard of social loafing before, it is the motivational loss resulting from members feeling less accountable for team outcomes. So back to my tug of war picture. This is a different picture on that same day where we won the championship for tug of war. It's a good thing we won because the person in front here is not putting a lot of effort in. All right, that's John. He is not putting his back into that thing. Look at me. I'm leaning over. My brother on the left is pulling with all his might. And the 2 team members in front of me are also pulling with all their might. But this guy's social loafing. Think about any time you've been on a team, there's 1 or 2 people who do nothing. The more people involved, they just push less. So they say to themselves, someone else has the load. I'm not going to take the load. So this is John in the front here, and he is not pulling any of that load. If he let go, it wouldn't change at all. What social loafing starts to do is it starts to get you to resent some of the members on your team. And that can lead to the next big problem with larger teams, which is relationship conflict. Conflict crushes productivity. So let's talk about relationship conflict. If you're into rock music, you might know who's on the screen here, but let me point it out to the rest of you. On the left there, we have a band called Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac is famous for their breakups. Look at this People magazine cover, the saga of busting charts while breaking hearts and each other. They're a big team and they have lots of relationship conflict. On the right-hand side, you might recognize that band. That is Green Day. They have 3 members in their band. They have been in existence for many years and have never broken up. They still fight on, as it says on this picture from Rolling Stone magazine. So Green Day, small, still touring. I saw them last summer. Fleetwood Mac, big band. They broke up. I saw a version of them back in the 90s. One of the famous quotes on Group Size from Fleetwood Mac is that everyone in the group got along with 3 other people, but they didn't get along with everybody. So that whole dynamic of groups being too big and not being able to communicate with those teams increased this conflict. Another point about conflict is that there's 2 types. There is relationship conflict. That's a killer for productivity. And there's task conflict. Amazingly, task conflict is something we want to encourage as leaders. Research has found that teams that experience personal conflict and poor resolution are much less productive than teams that get along. So task conflict is when we want to have different ideas on how to accomplish something. Research has found that teams that experience task conflict are often more productive because of critical evaluation of ideas. This is good stuff. So as leaders, we might want to encourage task conflict and we want to eliminate relationship conflict. Task conflict is something that avoids my next point about small teams, which is groupthink. So what you're looking at here is a picture of me and my wife and friends when we went on vacation together years ago in Jamaica. And it reminds me of a story of groupthink. So groupthink occurs when the whole group values group harmony more than group performance. So this reminds me of when my mom used to say, hey, if your best friends jumped off a cliff, would you follow them? And I always say, oh, of course not. But this actually happened. So the resort that we were at, some of the staff members that work there were trying to egg us on and say, oh, all the Canadians that come here, they jump off this cliff. So I looked at my wife and I said, do you want to jump off the cliff? I looked at my buddy Jason. I said, do you want to jump off the cliff? I looked at his wife and said, do you want to jump off the cliff? And we all said, yeah, let's jump off the cliff. This is a quick video of me jumping off the cliff. Check it out. Okay, that looks harmless, but it wasn't. For the rest of the week, I had water leaking out of my nose. I had it leaking out of my sinuses. I had pain in my ears. It was a disaster. But because of groupthink, we all agreed to do something that maybe wasn't the smartest move to do. This happens all the time at work. Small groups do in particular. So groupthink occurs in both large and small groups, but it's more prevalent in small groups due to increased cohesion. So we talked about cohesion already. So when we have cohesion, we have pressures to conform, and dissenting opinions are typically not tolerated. So if my wife said, nah, I don't want to do that, we would have all jumped on her and said, oh, the guide said that all the Canadians do this. So our group was more interested in harmony than they were in group performance. Although it was kind of fun to do that jump, we all regretted it for the rest of the week when I had water leaking out of my nose. So in a work situation, to avoid groupthink, when it comes to leadership of this kind of thing, we have to value dissent. We have to give people a voice and the ability to speak up when they feel something is not right. And sometimes the devil's advocate role can be played to help with that kind of thing. The next major benefit of small teams is that small teams are very agile. They can make decisions really quickly. They can solve problems really quickly. So if you don't know who this is Alphonso Davies. He's on the Canadian soccer team, and he has the ability to change directions really quickly. He's very nimble. He scores lots of goals because of his ability to change directions quickly. The opposite of this would be the Titanic. They cannot change directions quickly. So the big Titanic is a slow-moving vessel, sees the iceberg up there, can't change direction, hits it, and sinks. Alphonso Davies sees something like an iceberg in front of him, like a defender, and he gets around them really quickly, which allows him to score goals and do really well for Canada and for Bayern Munich, which is the team that he plays for in Germany. This is him doing his thing. Really remarkable. Check it out. Oof. Gets around everybody, goes and scores a goal. So this all points in the same direction, is that some benefits of small teams, there's some benefits of large teams, but all teams need good leadership. We have to guide teams to avoid social loafing. We have to guide our teams to avoid personal conflict. And as it says, we can guide them to encourage task conflict. Task is okay. Task conflict leads to better productivity. Personal conflict crushes productivity. We have to guide them to avoid groupthink. We don't want them jumping off cliffs in Jamaica. We have to guide them to embrace diversity. And that's one of the biggest benefits of a large team, is it embraces that diversity. And of course, we have to guide them to maximize communication. So good leadership is needed. So is it the more the merrier? Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes it's better when the team is big. We have more ideas, more diversity, more problem-solving ability. But sometimes that leads to too many cooks. And too many cooks in this kitchen are not going to be very useful. That leads to conflict. That leads to social loafing. That leads to difficulty communicating. So I started this talk with a simple question. What is the ideal group size? And the first answer to that is it depends. But now we've talked about what it depends on, so we know the answer now. The ideal group size is the one with good leadership. So thanks for your attention. Let me know if you like this talk by throwing a like on the video. If you have any questions or comments, you can look me up on LinkedIn, or you can just get me right in the comments here on this video. And I'd love to follow up with you on any questions that you have, or hear your thoughts on what makes the best team size. If you're interested in digging deeper on any of these things, have a look at the CEO Global Network website, where we have a program called the Global Leadership Training Program, which is a 10-month program, 1 session a month, 10 4-hour sessions that explore a lot of these topics in greater detail to help you be the best possible leader you can for your organization, and will improve the skills and performance of anyone in your company that's leading people. My name is Adam Stoehr, the Vice President of Leadership Development for CEO Global Network, and I hope to see you down the road. Peace.